Hi, it's Adam, and we're back for video 9 of the Dominion tutorial series. This episode is about shuffle control. So we've talked about shuffles, and there are some things you can do to manipulate when you shuffle, and this is a useful concept to talk about. And to start, I want to talk about what is a bad shuffle. Some things you can look for to determine if a shuffle you're about to trigger is a bad shuffle. One of them is when you can't draw through that shuffle. So like if you're playing a minion deck or a deck with a lot of stables or a couple warehouses in it, you'll find yourself with bad cards in your discard. Minion discards the cards you can't play. Stables discards coppers. Warehouse discards cards you don't want. If your discard pile is full of these bad cards and you trigger a shuffle, now your draw pile is full of bad cards. And if you can't draw all of those back up with what's in your hand, or at least, get them back into your discard somehow, then you're going to draw 5 cards for your next hand, and those 5 cards are all going to be bad, and you're just going to have a turn where you do nothing, and that's super bad. And you can prevent this by just not triggering that shuffle. So another thing to look for, which also applies in these cases, is are a lot of good cards going to miss this shuffle? So normally your good cards are all in play, right, or they're in your hand. And a lot of times in this case, you're actually not going to improve your turn very much by causing the shuffle, because what are the cards you're going to draw? They're all bad. So these are things to look for when you're about to trigger a shuffle. And when I talk about this, like, you're going to shuffle over the course of the game. That's going to happen, right? But a lot of times, whenever I'm going to play a card on my turn that could potentially trigger that shuffle, these are the things you want to think about. And if it's a bad shuffle, then just don't play the card and you're going to be better off. I mean, maybe you're missing out on a tiny bit, but it is just not worth it if you're going to trigger a bad shuffle. So now, for this slide, I'm going to talk about the case where you have more than one turn per shuffle. So a lot of these concepts don't apply if you're shuffling every turn. But if you've got multiple turns before you shuffle, say like in the beginning of the game when you haven't thinned yet, or if you're playing big money, or towards the end of the game if you're not drawing everything. These are just some things to think about where you are in your shuffle, how it can affect what you buy, for example. So if you're towards the top of your shuffle or maybe in the middle of it, normally towards this end of the shuffle, you want to try and be more efficient with your money. So you want to spend more of your money. And the reasoning behind this is because maybe you're not going to make that much money later on. If I have 6 this turn and I'm thinking about buying a gold and a fiver, if those are the cards I want this turn, maybe the fiver is more important for my deck. Like if I could pick one, I'd pick the fiver. But if I think I'm going to hit 5 later on and I might not hit 6, well, I'll get the gold now because I can just pick up the fiver before I shuffle, and then I'll be better off. So being efficient with your money at the top of the shuffle is something that you should have more in the front of your mind. Whereas if you're toward the bottom of the shuffle, you're just going to ask yourself, what is the best card for my deck right now? Because it's getting shuffled right in, and it's more important to get the right card, even if you don't spend all your money. So if you're towards the middle top, I'm coming back here. So if you're going to top deck some cards for next turn, you want to try and have some kind of idea of what's coming up. So this is more towards the middle of the shuffle. You have a pretty good idea, oh, well, this hand's bad. Maybe I can save it. Maybe I'll top deck something like a cellar or a warehouse, or maybe something that trashes, if you have some flexibility on what to top deck. Don't always just top deck a good card because maybe it's not the right card for that turn. Maybe you'll get better value. So if you just think through what's going to actually happen in this case based on what you know, a lot of times you'll end up better off because of it. And then when you're not at the bottom of your shuffle, middle or top, you want to feel slightly better about greening. Part of this is because green cards usually cost more than other cards, so this kind of plays into being efficient with your money. But also, like, you're not going to see that card for a while. You're not going to shuffle it in for a couple more turns. So it's kind of good to buy a card that does nothing when you're not going to see it for a while. You get a little more value, although that's not entirely true. I mean, what I'm not trying to say is that you should just green whenever you're at the top of a shuffle. That's not what I'm trying to say. You want to make sure that you're actually ready to green before you green, But, if you're thinking about buying some green cards, and you can, and you're at the top of a shuffle, now's a good time to estimate how many times you think you're going to shuffle your deck before the turn's over, and that'll educate what you're going to do. I mean, obviously, if you can buy a province, and that's what you want to do, yeah, go buy the province. But if I have $6 at the top of my shuffle, and I'm thinking, do I get a gold or a duchy? Then I think, oh, well, am I going to shuffle 1 time, 2 times before the game's over? Is it really important that I get duchy? These are things to think about, and probably err more towards maybe more towards the duchy, but, use how many times you're going to reshuffle before the game is over to educate that decision. When you're at the bottom of the shuffle, you do have a little more information about this. So instead, you want to feel slightly better about building a little more. And what I mean by that is, both you and your opponent have taken some turns. You have a better idea of what it's going to take for you to win the game. So if buying a duchy here is really important, if it means that, those 3 points are potentially going to make the difference between winning and losing the game, yeah, get that duchy. But if it's not, definitely get that gold and shuffle that gold in, because it can help you, make you less likely to have bad turns coming up on your next shuffle. So yeah, you want to be very critical about that and feel a little better about building some more, because you're going to shuffle that right in. Also, another note here is that at the bottom of the shuffle, debt cards are pretty nice to buy. You're adding a bunch of value into your deck, and you're shuffling all of that value in, and then later on, I can just pay the debt off, on the next shuffle, but you're already making more income, hopefully as a result of that debt card. So that's a nice little efficient thing to do. So, in terms of controlling your shuffles, when you get control over it, these are things to think about. When you don't have that much control, you want to be thinking, in terms of whole shuffles as you're buying cards. The more comfortable you get with shuffling your cards and how to control it, the more concepts are going to make sense and, help you put certain cards in perspective that increase your cycling when they cause you to shuffle more often. Anyway, we'll see you for the next video.